Hi, I'm Glynn, Assistant Provost and Executive Director for Teaching, Learning plus Technology at Stony Brook University. And this is Innovations in Education. In our show, we feature faculty and staff using innovative approaches and best practices in teaching, and applications of educational technology that have had a positive effect on student learning. In this show, I'm joined by Marcy McGuinness, Associate Dean within the School of Journalism and a former Vice President at CBS News. We will be discussing using experiential learning to create passion about a subject in your students. Marcy, welcome to the show.
Thank you, Graham. Nice to be here.
Can you tell me a little bit about what you teach and the setting in which you teach it?
Sure. I teach a class called Voice and Presentation, and I teach it to a group of no more than 10 students, and I teach it in a television studio here at Stony Brook, and I teach it right on the set so that they're learning how to present themselves on camera, both as reporters and as anchors.
Okay. So what is the key to creating passion and lighting a fire in students?
Well, lighting a fire in general, I think is just trying to figure out what they're interested in, what the individual student might be interested in, and trying to pull that out as to, trying to get them to understand, why they care about something so much. I care desperately about television news, and so the students that are taking my class, for the most part, care a lot about television news, even though they're not quite sure why. So I talk to them about what I did for a living in my past life, and I ask them, what is it about this that interests you, that excites you, and that's the way you pull out their passion. Okay.
So your own personal passion is key to getting them excited. So how do you really get them to take on that emotion?
Well, I get very enthusiastic in the class. I'm very, very kind of, out there, and I don't just stand in front of the room and teach. I show them how to do it, I explain how you do it, and I almost exaggerate so that when they try to do it, it's ratcheted down a little bit because they could never be as demonstrative as I am right off the bat. So I think that the enthusiasm that I bring to the class is something that helps them get a little comfortable, they get a little excited, they're not looking down at their BlackBerries, and so they're interested in learning what I have to tell them.
Whenever I look at professional performances, plays, musicals, whatever, I always have a sense, if I stop and think, that the performers have exaggerated the emotion on the stage. And I think to some degree, we as teachers have to get comfortable with doing that also, so that we're conveying that emotion, and not be scared to do that, because it's part of being a professional teacher.
Right.
To do so.
Right.
So you talked about having the students do, so experiential learning,
Absolutely.
Immersing them. Tell us a little bit how you actually do that.
Well, the entire class that I teach is about doing. The reason I keep the number to 10 or under is because in an hour and 20 minutes, you don't have all that much time to have each person perform. Mm-hmm. And I use the word perform, even though they're actually learning how to present themselves on television. So every single class, they will have had an assignment the week before that they have to write something, and then they will perform it on camera. Okay. So they will write, for example, a 15-second voiceover having something to do with financial news, and then they will come to the anchor desk and they'll read it off the prompter. We do some as the class progresses, we'll do things that they're reading off the prompter. Sometimes they'll be doing a live shot where they just have to think of something themselves and pretend they're at a news event and do a maybe 15-second, 20-second stand-up close. And so they're thinking off the top of their heads, and they don't have a prompt to rely on. So it varies. Each class gets harder as the semester goes on.
So each in a class time would get 2 or 3 minutes in front of the camera?
They get, maybe even less, but I'll let them do it 1 or 2 times, and then we look at it. Okay. We critique it afterwards. So I save time at the end so that we can critique it, because I found that only me telling them what they did right or wrong, or what they could improve on, wasn't enough. They needed to see it. And so when they see it, they say, oh, So now I see what I did wrong.
Okay. So that critique, is that just a sit-down group conversation among the students?
Yeah, what it is they're all in studio, they're all watching each other perform. It's another part of the learning process. I tell them you can't have a thin skin when you're in this business because, you know, right here 10 people are watching you, but in the camera, millions of people could be watching you. So they perform, and then we play it back on a monitor in the studio, and I critique it, and I ask their opinions as well.
And is there any follow-through on that? Do you, if somebody gets some constructive criticism, do you look for them and next time that they're presenting that they've incorporated
Sure. So I'll say, you know, say for example, a student sitting at the anchor desk and maybe doing when a nervous thing is they move like this, and I'll point that out, and then the next time if they don't do it, we'll say, see how Carol remembered not to move in her chair or whatever. So you get positive reinforcement.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay. I know the School of Journalism has this new facility called the Newsroom of the Future. Tell us a little bit about that and why that was created.
Okay. Let's see, when I first came here in the end of '06, Howie Schneider was just starting the School of Journalism, and one of the things he wanted to do was have a facility where the students could work in a true newsroom setting, because we all came from the world of working in newsrooms, whether it be broadcast or print, and we wanted the students to understand that that was the world they were preparing for, and so we wanted them to have that kind of setting. So the good news is, you know, we raised the money to build this facility, and we went out to bid to talk to people like Apple and Sony to talk about the actual equipment that we would put in that newsroom so that the students would be working with things that would be applicable when they went for jobs. I didn't want them to learn on equipment that would be obsolete by the time they graduated. And so we were really ahead of the curve with getting the kind of equipment that we did in our working newsroom, which serves as both a classroom and an actual working newsroom.
Okay. Can you define what a newsroom is? I mean, we're not talking about on-camera newsrooms. We're talking about the back-end editing functionality, behind-the-scenes type of
Right. For the most part, it is a behind-the-scenes. The newsroom is the place where the journalists work, where they write their stories, where they might do some reporting when they're not out in the field doing some reporting. They might actually be doing some research and reporting right from there. They might be editing their video that will go with their story, whether it be for newscast or online. One of the things that's important for our students is we're teaching them how to do print, online, and video.
Right.
And I hesitate to even call it broadcast. I'm teaching them how to produce a broadcast, but it's really how to combine all of these skills into one medium, because chances are, again, the jobs that they're going to get will probably be those kinds of jobs where they'll be working at places where people need them to do video editing, writing, copy editing, and all together. So that's where they work. They work in the newsroom.